It was 12:17 a.m. when the man first appeared. I remember the exact time because I was staring at the blinking red digits of the motel's old reception clock, trying to keep my eyes open. The rain outside had just started, soft at first, but steady. And that goddamn humming from the flickering ceiling light was the only sound I could hear. Then the bell above the glass door jingled, and he stepped inside. He didn't walk in. He drifted, like something out of place, not quite real. He was average height, soaked to the bone, his hood clinging to his face like skin. What struck me first wasn't how he looked, but how the air in the room changed the moment he entered. Like everything had dropped a few degrees colder. Like the motel itself was holding its breath. "Got any rooms?" he asked. I hesitated. Something in me screamed to say no. This was my first full night alone at the Willow Creek Motel, just off a desolate stretch of highway in upstate New York. I'd been trained by my friend Matt, who vouched for me when I desperately needed the job. After only 5 rushed days of training, I was thrown into the night shift alone. It was supposed to be simple: check-ins, paperwork, and keeping an eye on the outdated security system. But nothing in that training prepared me for this. For him, I forced a smile, the way Matt had taught me. "Yeah, we've got one left." He smiled back. But there was something in his eyes, a twitch, like a trapped animal sizing me up. As I began entering his information into the system, he started pacing behind the counter. Then, out of nowhere, he clapped loudly, not once, repeatedly, like he was trying to scare off invisible birds. "Buzzing," he muttered. "Too loud. Can't stand the buzzing." I froze. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. His voice was fragmented, broken like a bad radio signal. He scratched at his neck violently, then laughed, dry and joyless, the kind of laugh you'd expect from someone watching a car crash. "You okay, sir?" I asked, my voice cracking. No answer. Just a blank stare. Against every instinct in my body, I handed him the key to room 6 and watched as he walked away. I couldn't stop shaking. 15 minutes passed. Then, a thunderous slam on the glass. I jumped so hard I knocked over my coffee. He was back, face pressed against the door like an animal, eyes bulging with rage. His fists pounded the glass so hard I thought it would shatter. "You locked me out. You locked me out on purpose," he screamed. I didn't. I knew I didn't. But the way he said it made me question myself. "I'll get you a new key," I stammered, trying to remain composed, though I could feel the blood draining from my face. He grabbed the new key with shaking hands and stared at me with a look that said, "I'll remember you." He disappeared again, and I locked the office door behind him this time. My heart was pounding. I tried calling Matt, but no answer. Just static. Even the front desk phone was dead silent. No dial tone. Nothing. Then I heard the creak of footsteps, slow, heavy, coming from the stairwell. I grabbed my pocket knife from the drawer. Matt had told me to keep something with me at night. "Just in case," he said. Now I understood why. The man was muttering something, over and over. As he walked down the hall, I pressed my ear to the office door. "Kill her. Kill her. Kill her." Over. And over and over again. I couldn't move, I couldn't even breathe. That voice, his voice, wasn't just muttering. It was changing, growing deeper, more guttural, like something else was speaking through him. Each repetition, "Kill her. Kill her," stabbed deeper into my brain. I slid to the ground, my back pressed against the office door, fingers tight around the knife. The thin wooden door was the only thing separating me from whatever the hell was out there. And it wasn't just a man anymore. It felt wrong. Inhuman. The motel's ancient heating system clicked to life. rattling like bones in the vents. The noise almost made me scream. It was the only sound I could hear besides his dragging footsteps and that damned whispering chant. I couldn't stay there. I had to get out. Somehow. I crawled over to the window and peeked through the blinds. He was gone. Not in the hallway. Not near the stairs. Silence. I unlocked the door slowly, one hand still on the knife, and stepped out, barefoot on the freezing tile floor. The lights in the hallway flickered violently. One of them went out with a soft pop. The carpet smelled like mildew and old smoke. I made my way toward the guest rooms. Room 6's door was wide open. Inside, the room was dark. The bedsheets were ripped off. The mattress had been dragged halfway across the floor like something or someone had been crawling under it. The bathroom light was on, flickering dimly. From inside came the sound of running water. I took a shaky step closer. "Sir, are you all right?" Silence. Then, a sharp metallic clang, like a pipe wrench hitting porcelain. I flinched back, heart jackhammering. Every instinct told me to run, but I couldn't leave without knowing if he was still there. I crept toward the bathroom door, and that's when I saw it. Blood. On the floor. Not a lot, but fresh. A few dark red drops trailing out from the bathroom and toward the hallway like something had been dragged. Or someone. That's when the whispering started again, closer this time. Right behind me. I turned. But no one was there. The hallway was empty, lights stuttering like they couldn't decide whether to stay on or give up completely. I backed away from the bathroom, retracing my steps, hands trembling. Then I heard the scream. A woman's scream. Short, muffled, cut off. I knew damn well there were no women staying at the motel that night. Just one old couple in room 12. Everyone else had checked out. I bolted back to the office, slamming the door shut behind me, locking it with shaking hands. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911 busy signal. I stared at the screen in disbelief. No service, not even one bar. The landline was still dead. Not even static this time, just dead air. I backed up toward the file cabinet where we kept emergency tools. Hammer, flashlight, extra key cards. I opened the drawer and something dropped onto the floor. A motel key. Room 9. But no one had been checked into room 9 that night. It was supposed to be vacant. I picked it up, and there, etched crudely on the plastic tag, were 3 words scratched deep into the surface. "She's in here." I didn't want to go. Every instinct in my body screamed to throw that key into the trash, to lock myself in the office until daylight burned this nightmare away. But curiosity isn't a harmless thing, not when it's tangled with fear. I had to see. Room 9 was just around the corner from the office, close enough to feel safe, close enough to die screaming too. The hallway was silent now. Too silent. Not even the hum of the vending machine. The air was thick, heavy, like the motel itself didn't want me there anymore. I reached the door. Room 9. My hand trembled as I slid the key into the lock. A faint click echoed down the hall, too loud for the silence around me. The door creaked open, revealing a pitch-black room. And then, that smell hit me. Copper. Rot. Mold. The stench of something old and wrong. I stepped inside. One hand gripped my knife. The other, a flashlight that flickered like it was struggling to stay alive. That's when I saw her. A woman, curled up in the corner, head resting against the dresser, skin pale as ash, her hair soaked in blood, her eyes open, wide open, staring right at me. But she didn't move. I inched closer, knees weak. "Ma'am?" I whispered. No answer. just her blank, lifeless stare, and the thick, clotted blood trailing down the side of her face. Her arms were covered in bruises, fresh ones. There were marks carved into her skin, symbols. I didn't recognize them, but they felt wrong, primitive and cruel. Then I heard it. Behind me. Breathing. Too close. I spun around. He was there. The man. From before. But his eyes were no longer wild. They were dead. Hollow. Like someone had scooped out his soul and left a shell behind. His mouth hung open slightly, as if he were mid-sentence. And in his right hand, he held a long, rusted screwdriver. I told her not to look at me, he muttered. She looked, so now she's mine. He stepped forward, dragging the screwdriver against the wall, carving long gashes into the paint as he walked. You locked me out, he said, voice dry and cracking. That was rude, Rachel. My heart stopped. That's not my name. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking through me. You let them in. Now you have to stay. That's when I understood. This wasn't about a room, or even a man. It was something else. Something darker, older. The motel wasn't haunted. It was hungry. And it used people like him to feed. I ran. I shoved past him, bolting down the hallway as he screamed behind me. No one leaves. You're hers now. The lights above me exploded one by one as I sprinted, glass raining down like sharp rain. I made it to the office, slamming the door, locking it, shoving a chair under the handle. I grabbed my phone again. This time, one bar. I called. 911, it rang. 911, what's your emergency? There's been a murder. Room 9, Willow Creek Motel. He's still here. He's not human. A crash. The door buckled. I screamed. Please send someone. He's breaking in. Stay on the line, the operator said, her voice cold and mechanical. Help is on the way. But she didn't sound real. She sounded like him. Like she was part of it. The door splintered. A hand reached through. Pale. Bloody. And then, sirens. Red and blue lights flared outside. The hand retracted. Screams echoed down the hallway. Deep animal screams. When the police entered, there was no man. No woman. Room 9 was empty. No blood. No body. Nothing. Just a motel key lying on the floor. Scratched with my name. Rachel. I quit the next morning. Burned the uniform. Left town, but I still have the key. I tried throwing it away once. It came back, on my pillow, and every night since at exactly 12:17 a.m. my phone buzzes. No caller ID, just a voice whispering from the other end. She's still waiting. I should have listened to my gut the moment I heard his voice. Not when I got to the house, not when he opened the door, not when he touched me. The first warning came over the phone, and I ignored it. It was supposed to be my night off. I was halfway through a horror movie wrapped in my hoodie, texting my sister about nothing in particular when my manager from Brody's Pizza called. Hey Lex, he said, one of our drivers bailed last minute. Can you cover a single delivery, big tip potential? I hesitated. Something in me twisted. I was tired, burned out, and not exactly dying to throw on my uniform and ride across town at night. But I needed the money. Fine, just one. I got to the shop in less than 10 minutes. It was almost midnight, cold, quiet, and unsettling. I noticed the front window sign had a flickering Z'd in pizza, which I hadn't seen before. It buzzed like a wasp trapped in a jar. The order was already sitting on the counter. Large pepperoni. Cash, no drinks. My manager handed me the receipt. Guy sounded kinda weird, but he's in the system. Should be fine. I looked at the address, Elliott Street. Zone D. My stomach tightened. Elliott Street was just past the county line, technically still in our radius, but barely. It was the kind of area you didn't wander into without a reason. Fewer streetlights, run-down houses, shadows where shadows shouldn't be. Did you already confirm with him? I asked. Yeah, he called again, actually. Wanted to make sure. We were sending you. Said your voice was pleasant. He said it with a chuckle, but my blood ran cold. Still, I nodded. I didn't want to seem paranoid. I shoved the pizza into the heat bag, strapped on my helmet, and headed out. It was a 19-minute ride, but it felt like an hour. The city slowly thinned behind me, replaced by cracked sidewalks, overgrown yards, and broken porch lights. Elliott Street was darker than I remembered. The kind of dark that swallows everything. The house was at the very end of the cul-de-sac, number 78. 2 stories, no lights outside, no cars in the driveway, but there was a dim glow from somewhere deep inside, just enough to cast long, warped shadows across the windows. I killed the engine and took the pizza. Every step toward the front porch felt heavier than the last. The wind picked up, sharp and dry. I reached for the doorbell and realized there wasn't one. Before I could knock, the door creaked open. He was already there. Mid-40s, balding, gray, sunken eyes. A cheap, wrinkled tuxedo like he was going to a party 2 decades ago and forgot to change. His breath reeked of alcohol and something metallic. "Evenin'," he said. Right on time. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He didn't blink, just stared. "Got your pizza," I said, holding it out like a shield. He took it, but instead of closing the door, he stepped aside. "Want to come in? Share a slice?" I forced a laugh. "I'm good. Keto." He chuckled. "Ah, shame. Pretty girls like you don't eat much these days." His voice was soft but off, too deliberate, like he was acting a part but didn't quite know the script. He stepped closer. My grip tightened on the delivery bag. "I should get back. Busy night." Reached into his pocket. I flinched, but he pulled out a crumpled $5 bill. When he handed it to me, his fingers lingered, brushing against mine. Cold. Damp. Wrong. "You sure you won't come in?" he asked again. "Could buy you something real nice." That's when I heard it. A scream. Muffled, sharp, and definitely human. It came from inside the house. I froze. He didn't. Just turned his head slightly toward the dark hallway behind him, then looked back at me. His expression had changed. The smile dropped. His eyes narrowed. "I think it's time for you to leave," he said. His voice was flat now. Cold. The performance was over. I didn't wait. I bolted down the porch steps, heart pounding so hard, I thought I'd black out. I leapt on my bike and peeled out of the driveway like a bat out of hell. But I could feel him still watching me. From the doorway, from the dark, and I knew, without a doubt, I had almost stepped into a trap. I couldn't stop shaking, not on the ride back. Not even after I slammed the store door behind me, heart jackhammering in my chest like I'd just outrun death. "Jesus, Lex. You look like you saw a ghost," my manager said. "No," I panted. "Worse. There's someone screaming inside that house." He blinked. "What?" "I heard it. A woman. I don't know what the hell is going on in there, but something's wrong. We need to call the cops." I expected hesitation, but he didn't even argue. 10 minutes later, 2 squad cars were parked out front, lights pulsing against the storefront windows. I gave my statement. The house, the man, the scream. Every detail I could remember, I told them. They nodded, scribbled, notes, asked me to stay put. I waited. Hours passed. My coworkers went home. The store closed. Around 4 a.m., one of the officers returned. His face looked different, strained, pale, haunted, like he'd seen something he wasn't ready for. "You did the right thing calling," he said quietly. "We found her." My blood turned to ice. Her? She was in the basement, handcuffed to a radiator, beaten, dehydrated. Been there for at least 2 days. He paused. It was his ex-girlfriend. He thought she'd cheated on him, said he was teaching her a lesson. My mouth went dry, I could barely speak. Is she alive? Barely. She'll make it. Thanks to you. I didn't sleep that night. Or the next. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. What I imagined it must have looked like. I saw that hallway, the dark stretch behind him, yawning like a throat about to swallow me whole. If I had stepped through that door, I wouldn't be here, but the worst part, the what-ifs. What if she hadn't screamed? What if I hadn't listened? What if he had grabbed me? The next day I quit. No 2 weeks' notice, no explanation. I left my uniform in the dumpster behind the store and deleted every contact I had from Brody's Pizza. I didn't care about the money. I didn't care about the job. I just wanted to forget, but it wasn't that simple. That night I got a text from an unknown number. "You should have stayed for a slice." I stared at the screen, breath caught in my throat. My stomach churned. No name. No reply when I called back. I blocked the number, threw the phone across the room. Didn't matter. The message had already sunk into my skin like poison. He knew who I was. He had my number. And he was still out there. I didn't leave my apartment for 3 days. I kept the windows locked, curtains shut, my phone off. I didn't tell my friends. Didn't talk to my sister. Every creak in the floorboards made my chest tighten. Every knock at the door sent me sprinting to the kitchen, knife in hand. I didn't feel safe. Not just in my home, in my skin, because deep down I didn't believe it was over. The cops said he was arrested. They said he'd be charged. But then the calls started. Blocked numbers. Dead silence when I answered. Breathing. Slow. Wet. Familiar. I stopped answering, but it didn't stop. Then I found a folded note under my doormat. Just one sentence. "I still have a slice with your name on it." That was it. I left the next morning. Packed what I could carry. Didn't tell a soul. I moved 3 states away, changed my number, dyed my hair, started working from home. I even changed my name legally. But trauma doesn't respect zip codes. I still can't eat pizza. Still can't hear the sound of cardboard flaps without flinching. Still wake up at 12:47 a.m., the time the scream echoed from that house, gasping for air, drenched in sweat. And sometimes, I still see him in crowds, in gas stations, in my nightmares. There's one I keep having. I'm standing in that hallway again. The house is rotting from the inside, wallpaper peeling like skin, the shadows reaching for me like fingers. I see the door swing open and he's there, same tuxedo, same pale smile. But this time, he's holding 2 pizza boxes, one for him, one for me. And he says, "I told you, you should have stayed." I always wake up screaming before I see what's inside, but I think I already know, because some things follow you, not because they're fast, not because they're smart, but because they stain you and you can scrub all you want. But the mark stays. The man walked in like he owned the place. But it wasn't just the way he moved, it was the energy. Thick, toxic, like something had followed him in and closed the door behind us. It was a slow Tuesday night at the Burger Barn, a grimy little fast food joint on the edge of town. Midnight shifts weren't supposed to be exciting. Just a few drunks, a couple late-night regulars, and the usual sad-looking delivery drivers grabbing dinner before heading back out. I'd worked there for almost a year, knew the rhythm, knew the faces, but I'd never seen him before, He was tall, rail-thin, with hollow cheeks and sunken eyes that looked like they hadn't seen sleep in days. His clothes were dark and wrinkled like he'd been living out of them. But the worst part? The way he stared. Like he already knew me. He walked right up to the counter, silent, while I was wiping it down. "You," he said. "You slept with my wife." I froze. My heart dropped into my stomach. For a second I thought it was a joke. A prank. But he wasn't smiling. I don't know what you're talking about," I stammered. His eyes twitched, just a little. Barely noticeable, but enough to send a chill crawling up my spine. "You don't remember me?" he asked. "You don't remember what you did?" I looked around. Only 2 other customers were in the dining area, a couple of teenagers scrolling on their phones, oblivious. "No, sir, I've never seen you before in my life." He leaned in. "I remember you," he whispered. "And she remembered you too." Right before she stopped breathing. The words didn't hit me all at once. They crawled into my ears like insects, burying themselves under my skin. I backed away slowly, keeping one hand near the intercom for the kitchen. "Sir, if this is some kind of misunderstanding," his hand slammed the counter. Hard. The ketchup dispenser jumped. A tray fell from the rack behind me. The teenagers looked up. Everyone froze. That's when Andrew, our night shift security guy, walked out from the back. Big guy. Former Marine. Thank God. "Sir, you need to calm down and step back," Andrew said, approaching him. But the man didn't even glance at him. He stared only at me. "Tell him," he hissed. "Tell him what you did." Andrew reached for the man's shoulder. Bad move. In one fluid motion, the man spun and punched Andrew in the face hard. The sound was like meat hitting concrete. Andrew dropped, crashing into a chair with a loud snap. Chaos erupted. The teenagers screamed. Chairs scraped. One of them ran for the exit. I reached under the counter for the panic button. But the man was already moving again, around the counter, into our side, and that's when I saw it. In his hand, a spatula, one of ours. Still slick with grease, he gripped it like a weapon. I backed up, stumbling toward the kitchen. He followed. "Where is she?" he shouted. "Where did you hide her?" He grabbed one of the line cooks, Devin, poor kid barely out of high school, and slammed him against the wall, pressed the edge of the spatula to his throat. "Don't move," the man whispered, "or I'll gut you open right here." Devin froze. Tears welled in his eyes. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. My mind was screaming, "Do something. Do something," but my body felt like stone. I looked for an exit. The only one nearby was the back door just past the freezer. The man was distracted, focused on Devin. I ran. He saw me. I shoved through the kitchen doors like they were paper, heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. My shoes slipped on the greasy floor, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I knew he was right behind me. I could hear him. The scrape of something metal dragging across tile. The rapid slap of footsteps, and his voice twisted and trembling. "You can't run from what you did." I slammed through the emergency exit into the back alley. Cold air slapped my face like punishment. The night outside was still and dead. No sirens, no headlights, just the hum of the street lamp flickering like it was gasping for breath. I sprinted toward the employee parking lot. Then something whistled through the air. Pain exploded in my ribs. Collapsed against the hood of my car, wheezing. The air ripped from my lungs. My side screamed with agony. He'd thrown something. A piece of metal? A pipe? Didn't matter. He was already on me. His hands grabbed my shirt and yanked me down hard onto the asphalt. I hit the ground, skull cracking against concrete. My vision swam. I tried to scream, but all that came out was a garbled gasp. "You think I wouldn't find you?" he snarled, kneeling over me. "You think I'd let you forget?" His fists came down, Again and again, I tasted blood. My cheek split open. My eyes swelled instantly. The world narrowed to red and black, and the sick, wet sound of fists pounding. Flesh. I saw your name in her phone, he growled. I saw the text, I saw everything. I choked on a mouthful of blood and coughed. I don't know her. I swear to God I don't know her. He roared like an animal. Liar! He reached into his coat. My brain screamed knife. I fought to crawl backward, but he pinned me down, his knees digging into my ribs. You're gonna feel what she felt, he said. And his eyes. God. His eyes were hollow. Like something had burrowed in and eaten whatever humanity used to be. There. That's when I heard a shout. Devon. He'd followed us. I turned my head just in time to see Devon rush forward, wielding a fire extinguisher from the kitchen. With a primal scream, he slammed it into the man's side. The impact sounded like bone snapping. The man flew off me with a grunt, rolling across the pavement. I scrambled to my feet, barely able to stand, ribs screaming, face on fire. The man groaned, trying to rise. That's when he pulled a knife from his pocket. Not a kitchen knife, a hunting blade, stained. He pointed it at Devon. You shouldn't have done that, he whispered. Now you're both gonna bleed. He started toward us. I couldn't run. Not again, my legs were jelly. Devon backed up, hands raised, weaponless now. We were going to die in that parking lot. And I think, somewhere in that moment, I accepted, but fate had other plans. A scream of tires, headlights, and then impact. The man's body lifted off the ground like a rag doll, limbs flailing, and smashed into the pavement with a sickening thud. A car had come out of nowhere. Probably one of the teenagers who'd fled, returning with help. Everything froze, then sirens. The next thing I remember is the sound of radios squawking and boots pounding pavement. Red and blue lights strobing across my face. Someone yelling, "Get him down! Get him down!" But he wasn't staying down. The man, whatever was left of him, was trying to stand up. His body was twisted, broken, but still moving. His mouth poured blood as he shrieked and clawed toward the officers like some animal that hadn't realized it was already dead. It took 4 of them to pin him to the asphalt. One officer held his head while another pried the knife from his twitching hand. He kept howling through his teeth like a feral dog, spitting blood and nonsense. You don't get to forget. You don't get to walk away. I sat on the curb, cradling my ribs, trying not to pass out. My vision was swimming in red. I couldn't feel my face, couldn't feel safe. Devon was next to me. He had a deep gash on his arm, his shirt soaked through, but he was alive. We both were. Somehow, the paramedics patched us up while the police took statements. They said the guy's name was Richard Holloway, 41 years old. No criminal record, no priors, no warning. Except one, a psych evaluation from 3 years ago, after his wife filed for a restraining order. She disappeared 6 months later. Never found. He'd been spiraling ever since. They found photos in his motel room, screenshots of text messages. Half of them were doctored, made to look like conversations I never had. One had my name copy-pasted into it. There was no affair, no betrayal. He had created the delusion, and I had walked right into it. They took him away that night. He fought them the whole time, screaming, crying, laughing. At one point he turned his head toward me, eyes locked with mine through the chaos. You deserved it, he hissed. You know you did. I wish I could say that was the last I saw of him. But it wasn't. He shows up in my dreams now. Sometimes in the back of the restaurant, sometimes behind the wheel of that car, sometimes just standing outside my apartment window, smiling. The job was over. I quit the next morning. I couldn't step back in there. I couldn't smell fried grease without gagging. Couldn't look at a spatula without seeing blood. I moved to another town, Took a quiet office job. Filed a restraining order even though he was locked up, just in case. But every now and then, especially late at night, I'll catch myself looking over my shoulder. Checking door locks twice. Listening for a voice in the dark. Because it wasn't just him I ran from. It was the truth. That reality can crack like glass. And when it does, you don't always hear it shatter. Sometimes the pieces don't fall until it's too late. I never meant to hurt her. That's the part that eats me alive every night. The part that replays in my mind when I close my eyes and try to sleep. I didn't go to work that morning planning to snap. I just wanted to survive another soul-sucking shift at Fairview Mart, smile at strangers and make it to payday. But rage has a way of sneaking in quietly, until it screams. It started like every other miserable Saturday. I got up at 5:30 a.m., stared into the mirror in my tiny apartment bathroom, and put on my blue vest with my name stitched into the patch. Ethan. I looked like every other dead-eyed retail worker in America. But inside, I was a boiler room of pressure, just waiting. I'd been at Fairview for over a year, never missed a day. Always smiled, always swallowed the insults. But lately, it had started to wear through, like something hollowing me out from the inside. And that morning, something felt wrong the moment I walked through the automatic doors. The air was thick, still, too quiet. I couldn't explain it. It was like walking into the eye of a storm that hadn't happened yet. The store lights buzzed overhead, that fluorescent whine that crawls under your skin and burrows into your skull. "Morning, Ethan," said Dan, my supervisor. He looked tired, too. Everyone did. "Need you to help a customer in aisle 6, he added. "Difficult one." I forced a smile. "Got it." But as I walked toward aisle 6, I had this weird pressure building in my chest, like my body knew what my mind didn't, that something was going to go wrong. She was waiting for me before I even turned the corner, middle-aged, heavily built, blonde hair tied too tight. She gripped her purse like a weapon and stared at the shelves like they owed her something. "Can I help you find something?" I asked, default retail voice activated. She didn't look at me. "Where's the green tea?" "We've got several brands. Are you looking for a specific one?" She finally turned. Her eyes were sharp, cold. Her lip curled with disgust before she even spoke. "I want to speak to your manager." I blinked. "I can help." Did I stutter? She barked. "Get me your manager." I took a breath, felt it rattle in my chest. "Ma'am, our manager isn't in yet. But I'd be happy. You don't know anything, do you?" She snapped. Jesus, they'll hire anyone these days. It hit me like a slap. Not just the words, but the way she said them. Like I wasn't a person. Like I was just part of the display. Something in me cracked. "Ma'am, I'm trying to help." "You," I said, my voice colder now. "You're being extremely disrespectful." She laughed. "Wow. You're really not trained for this, are you?" And then she said it, loud enough for people in the next aisle to hear. "Figures. Look at you. Trash dressed up like a person. Don't remember making the decision." My vision tunneled. The buzzing lights went quiet. All I heard was the sound of my fist hitting her face. The sound she made when she hit the ground didn't sound real. It was a crack, sharp and unnatural, like someone had dropped a raw steak on concrete, but wet, final. Her head snapped back against the polished linoleum, and for a moment, everything froze. She wasn't moving, not blinking, not breathing right. Her mouth hung open in shock. A single trickle of blood slid from her nose, pooling beside her cheek like ink bleeding through paper. I stepped back, trembling. Hands, fists, red. My body wasn't mine anymore. It felt foreign, like I had borrowed it for something terrible, something monstrous, and then came the screaming, not hers, she was unconscious. It came from somewhere behind me. One of the customers, a man's voice shrill and panicked, yelling something I couldn't even process. 2 people rushed over, shouting. Someone grabbed me by the arm. Another person screamed in my face. I couldn't understand the words. It was like I'd been dropped underwater and the world above was still trying to get through. You'll never raise your hand to a woman again. A fist slammed into the side of my jaw. Then another. I staggered, falling back into the cereal display. Boxes toppled around me like an avalanche of sugar and cardboard. 2 men were on me, rage in their eyes, their hands flying. Their punches weren't justice. They were vengeance, blind and brutal. My ears rang. I felt my ribs crunch. Something snapped in my shoulder. The pain was searing, electric, and part of me welcomed it. Maybe this is what I deserve, but I couldn't breathe, couldn't scream, couldn't see straight. Everything blurred. Security showed up. Too late. They tried pulling the men off me, but fists kept flying. Boots scraped my back, elbows to my neck. I curled in on myself, shielding what I could, but it didn't matter. My body was just a target now. A punching bag and a blue vest. Eventually, the noise faded. Or maybe I passed out for a few seconds. When I opened my eyes again, the lights above were too bright. The crowd had backed off. The woman, the one I hit, was still lying there, still. Not dead, but dazed, groaning. Her mascara had run down her cheeks in crooked lines, her expression frozen in pain and disbelief. Like I was the monster that crawled out of the dark. Maybe I was. Dan stood over me, his face pale. He didn't say anything. Didn't need to. This wasn't just a mistake, it was a catastrophe. I staggered to my feet, blood leaking from my mouth. I tried to speak, tried to say I didn't mean to. That she pushed me, that I was tired, that I'd been trying, really trying to be okay, but no one cared. They saw what I did, and honestly, so did I. The police arrived like they were hunting a killer. Guns drawn, barked commands. One of them shoved me face first onto the tile, my cheek landing in the pool of the woman's blood. It was still warm, sticky, smelled like rust. They cuffed me so tight I couldn't feel my hands. One of the officers knelt on my back as if I might explode at any moment. I didn't resist. I couldn't. There was no fight left. Just shame. They dragged me out through the automatic doors. The world outside had turned gray. And then I saw them. Everyone. My co-workers standing frozen in the lot. Shoppers recording on their phones. Strangers staring at me like I was something scraped off the bottom of their shoes. Like I was inhuman. The sirens wailed as they shoved me into the back of the cruiser. My ears were still ringing. But in the silence between pulses, I heard her voice, the woman, weak, slurred, but loud enough to burn itself into my memory. He attacked me. For nothing. I closed my eyes and tried to disappear. But there was nowhere left to go. They booked me for 3rd-degree assault. Mugshot. Fingerprints. Blood still drying on my knuckles. I sat in a cell that night, lights buzzing overhead like back at the store, and stared at the wall until my eyes blurred. I kept replaying it, the heat in my chest, the sound of her teeth against bone. The relief I felt when it connected, that's what destroyed me most. Because somewhere in the mess of anger, humiliation, and panic, there was satisfaction. And I don't know what that makes me. The court wasn't forgiving. They charged me with assault and disorderly conduct. She pressed charges, of course. The video of the punch went viral. I was the retail rage guy on Reddit for a week. People said I snapped. Said I was just another loser who couldn't handle life. Said I was dangerous. Maybe they're right. I spent 1 year in prison, not long compared to others. But time works differently in there. It warps you. Days don't pass. They gnaw. Every breath in that place tasted like regret and disinfectant. I got into fights, was hospitalized twice, took anger management classes just to prove I was trying. But I wasn't trying to fix myself. I was trying to forget I ever existed. When I got out, I was thinner, quieter. My smile was gone. I found a job stocking shelves in a warehouse 3 towns over. Night shift, no customers, no uniforms, no mirrors, just silence. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I still see her falling. I hear the wet snap. I feel my knuckles tighten, even though I don't want them to. I tell myself I'm not that person anymore, but deep down I know the truth. He's still inside me, waiting, breathing, counting the days. I should have taken the train. That thought hits me every time I look in the mirror and trace the faint bruises that still live beneath the skin, phantoms of a night I'll never forget. It was just after 5 a.m. on a Saturday. While most of the world was curled up in warm beds, I was forcing myself into my navy blue work uniform, sipping bitter gas station coffee and trying to silence that inner voice whispering, "Stay home. Just this once. Stay home." But I didn't. Worked the graveyard shift at a 24-hour diner in Edgewater, a quiet little town in upstate New York, tucked between a dying highway and a forest that swallowed sound. It was the kind of place where nothing happened. Nothing ever happened until that morning. I'd just finished a particularly awful shift. 2 fights, a drunk guy who threw up on the floor, and a woman who wouldn't stop crying in the corner booth. I needed to clear my head. Needed the cold air to scrub the night off my skin, so I made a stupid decision. Instead of taking the subway home like I usually did, I decided to walk. It wasn't a long walk, maybe 20 minutes, and I told myself the quiet streets and early dawn would be peaceful, therapeutic. The sky was still dark, but there was that soft bluish tint at the edges that says, "Morning's coming, just wait." The first 10 minutes were fine. Empty sidewalks, the occasional passing car, nothing strange. Then I reached the bridge. It was an old pedestrian overpass stretching over the river, with tall wrought iron railings and thick patches of rust along the edges. Beneath it, the current churned black and silent. There were no streetlights along the bridge, just the moonlight carving silver lines into the darkness. That's when I saw him. A man. Standing completely still in the center of the bridge, long coat, hood up, no movement, no sound. Just standing there. I slowed. Something about the way he was positioned, the way his arms hung limp at his sides, the way his head tilted slightly toward the water, it made my stomach twist. He didn't look like someone enjoying the night air. He looked like a shadow that had forgotten how to disappear. I almost turned around. Almost. But I told myself I was being ridiculous. It was just a guy. Maybe he was waiting for someone. Maybe he was lost. So I walked on. As I passed him, I kept my head low, eyes forward, like he didn't exist. And then he moved. Not a step, just a turn of the head, slow, deliberate. He looked right at me. "Hey," he said. His voice was wrong. Hoarse and gravelly, like he hadn't spoken in years. I stopped, half a step past him, unsure of whether to answer. I said, "Hey." I turned, just a little, enough to see his face under the hood, and what I saw nearly made me scream. His face was gaunt and pale, lips cracked, but it was his eyes that sent me into a spiral, because they weren't looking at me. They were staring through me. Wide, wet, trembling with something ancient and hungry. Before I could move, he raised a hand and slapped me across the face. Hard. I stumbled back, nearly slipping on the icy concrete. What the hell? Another slap. Then another. He didn't speak. Didn't scream. just kept hitting me, open-handed, slow, controlled, like it was part of a ritual. By the time I raised my arms to defend myself, he grabbed my jacket and slammed me into the railing. Then, he leaned in, breath hot and sour on my neck, and whispered, "Don't move, I have a knife. I should have taken the train." That thought hits me every time I look in the mirror and trace the faint bruises that still live beneath the skin, phantoms of a night I'll never forget. It was just after 5 a.m. on a Saturday. While most of the world was curled up in warm beds, I was forcing myself into my navy blue work uniform, sipping bitter gas station coffee and trying to silence that inner voice whispering, "Stay home. Just this once. Stay home." But I didn't. Worked the graveyard shift at a 24-hour diner in Edgewater, a quiet little town in upstate New York, tucked between a dying highway and a forest that swallowed sound. It was the kind of place where nothing happened. Nothing ever happened until that morning. I'd just finished a particularly awful shift. 2 fights, a drunk guy who threw up on the floor, and a woman who wouldn't stop crying in the corner booth. I needed to clear my head. Needed the cold air to scrub the night off my skin, so I made a stupid decision. Instead of taking the subway home like I usually did, I decided to walk. It wasn't a long walk, maybe 20 minutes, and I told myself the quiet streets and early dawn would be peaceful, therapeutic. The sky was still dark, but there was that soft bluish tint at the edges that says, "Morning's coming, just wait." The first 10 minutes were fine. Empty sidewalks, the occasional passing car, nothing strange. Then I reached the bridge. It was an old pedestrian overpass stretching over the river, with tall wrought iron railings and thick patches of rust along the edges. Beneath it, the current churned black and silent. There were no streetlights along the bridge, just the moonlight carving silver lines into the darkness. That's when I saw him. A man. Standing completely still in the center of the bridge, long coat, hood up, no movement, no sound. Just standing there. I slowed. Something about the way he was positioned, the way his arms hung limp at his sides, the way his head tilted slightly toward the water, it made my stomach twist. He didn't look like someone enjoying the night air. He looked like a shadow that had forgotten how to disappear. I almost turned around. Almost. But I told myself I was being ridiculous. It was just a guy. Maybe he was waiting for someone. Maybe he was lost. So I walked on. As I passed him, I kept my head low, eyes forward, like he didn't exist. And then he moved. Not a step, just a turn of the head, slow, deliberate. He looked right at me. "Hey," he said. His voice was wrong. Hoarse and gravelly, like he hadn't spoken in years. I stopped, half a step past him, unsure of whether to answer. I said, "Hey." I turned, just a little, enough to see his face under the hood, and what I saw nearly made me scream. His face was gaunt and pale, lips cracked, but it was his eyes that sent me into a spiral, because they weren't looking at me. They were staring through me. Wide, wet, trembling with something ancient and hungry. Before I could move, he raised a hand and slapped me across the face. Hard. I stumbled back, nearly slipping on the icy concrete. What the hell? Another slap. Then another. He didn't speak. Didn't scream. Just kept hitting me. Open-handed. Slow. Controlled. Like it was part of a ritual. By the time I raised my arms to defend myself, he grabbed my jacket and slammed me into the railing. Then, he leaned in, breath hot and sour on my neck, and whispered, "Don't move, I have a knife." I stared at the photo until my fingers went numb. It was grainy, dark, but it was me. Standing on the bridge. Face turned slightly. Arms stiff at my sides. Vulnerable. Small, and behind me, barely visible in the shadow of the trees, a figure. Tall, still, watching. I dropped the phone like it burned me. My breath came in ragged gasps. My heart was a thunderstorm trapped inside a cage. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't sleep for days. I tried telling the police. Showed them the photo. Filed a report. They took notes, nodded, but I saw it in their eyes. The skepticism. The dismissal. One even asked if I had a history of hallucinations. No one ever found him. No fingerprints, no camera footage, no proof. The detective said maybe I'd been followed, that some junkie with a death wish had targeted me randomly. He said, "You got lucky. Move on." But how do you move on when something like that crawls into your life and refuses to leave? Because he didn't leave. He wasn't just on the bridge anymore. He was in the edges of my life. I started seeing him. Not full on, not at first, just flashes, in reflections, in crowds, in dreams that left my skin soaked in sweat and my sheets tangled like ropes. I'd walk past a mirror and swear, for a split second, he was standing behind me. I'd hear footsteps when I walked home, always two behind mine. I'd get calls from unknown numbers with nothing on the other end but breathing, heavy, deliberate. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night with the window cracked open, even though I hadn't opened it, even though I never sleep with it unlocked anymore. And sometimes I still feel him, not just near me, on me, a weight on my chest as I sleep, a cold hand brushing my shoulder when no one's there, a voice whispering in the dark, "Don't move, I have a knife." Therapists call it trauma. They say I'm projecting, reliving the event through fear, through guilt, through obsession. But they don't know what I know. Because a few weeks ago I went back to the bridge. I needed proof that I was stronger than the memory, that he was just a man, that the nightmare could end. But when I got there was a girl standing where I had once stood, alone, small, and on the opposite end of the bridge, a tall man in a long coat, still, silent, staring. I don't know if... I screamed. I don't remember how I got home. All I know is this. Whatever he is, he never left that bridge, and now I don't think he ever will. Because some places don't just witness horror. They breathe it. They feed on it. And once you meet what lives there, it never really lets you go. If you made it this far, you're braver than most. If these stories chilled you even a little, go ahead and hit that like button. It really helps me bring you more horror, more darkness, and more truth. Share this video with someone who thinks they're not afraid of the dark. And if you haven't already, subscribe. Join us. There's always another story waiting, and right now, the one playing on your screen might just be the scariest of them all. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.